in today's video we're going to be taking a quick look at the all-new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse The Batman 12-inch statues. Now before we delve in with the review, I would really appreciate it if you guys could all smash that like button, and as always please feel free to let me know down in the comment section below on what you think of both the statues as well as the review. Now more specifically, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the all-new gold label red and black variant of the Batman. We'll also be checking out the Riddler, and rounding things off we'll take a look at the more traditional variant of Batman. However, before we take a look at the statues, we'll very quickly go over some of the collector's cards. So for the gold label exclusive, we actually get this really awesome collector's card. You can see how we've got the bat emblem there, the Batman logo, and as we spin here to the back, you can see a fantastic piece of artwork with this wicked red and black motif going on, looking absolutely fantastic. For the more standard version of Batman, we do get the traditional collector's card, so you can see an awesome product shot there of the actual statue, and as we flip here to the back, we get a very brief bio on Bruce Wayne / Batman, and rounding things off, the same can also be applied here to the Riddler. You can see how we've got a fantastic piece of photography of the actual statue itself. Upon first glance, I did indeed mistake this for a movie still. That's how awesome this image looks. And then as we just flip here to the back once more, we've got a really nice bio there on the Riddler. Now we'll start firstly by taking a look at my personal favorite statue out of them all, that being the gold label red and black version. Now to be honest with you guys, I personally have never been a huge fan of statues. I actually don't think that up until this point I've ever really actually purchased a statue for my own personal collection. I've been bought statues in the past as gifts, but personally I've always found them rather useless, as you cannot in fact actually pose them around. However, when I saw what McFarlane Toys were doing for the Batman statues, I knew I had to add them to the collection, as the sculpt work across the board for McFarlane in general, but more specifically here for these statues, looked fantastic. And actually having this red and black variant in person, oh my goodness, this could in fact go down as being one of my favourite McFarlane Toys figures of all time. This looks so nicely done. Now in regards to mould, I believe it is identical to the standard version that we'll take a quick look at in just a second, but overall you can just see these amazing red highlights scattered all the way throughout this guy. To me this really does harken back to some of the old comic books that we used to see for Batman, and even when they did in fact actually do the reveal video for the brand new The Batman suit. As we bring this in here for a closer look, you can see all of that same fantastic sculpt work that we're used to with their 7-inch range. However, this time in the 12-inch scale, it really does allow you to appreciate some of the sharper details of the sculpt. I love all of the seams that we've got going on here. For the actual cowl, you can see all of the panels here for the actual neck armor, and the bat emblem has in fact never looked better. We get a great look of it here with this new 12-inch statue, and you can see here all of the different segments of the torso armor, which looks fantastic. As we spin our attention here to the arms, really awesome looking panels going on here for the shoulders, and I love the attention to detail of what appear to be actual tasers sculpted into the forearm gauntlets. You can see here for the actual hands themselves, these look fantastic. Now despite this being a statue, he does have very limited articulation, mainly just where the wrists and the arms are concerned. However, I personally would not recommend trying to articulate this at all, as the figure really does feel brittle. If you were to drop this, I have no doubt whatsoever that it would in fact actually smash into a million pieces. So definitely take caution when handling this figure, and of course moving him about in the collection. As we spin our attention here to the back, you can see the cape looks awesome. We've got all of these amazing wrinkles as well as creases going on, as well as that fantastic red paint. I just think the paint, while sparingly used, has been used incredibly effectively. You can see here for these tasers, we've got more of that red shadow highlighting, and even as we take a look towards the interior of the cape, this too has also been fully sculpted. And you can see there the utility belt looking awesome. Unlike the actual 7-inch version, we do in fact actually get a holster here fully sculpted for the grapnel gun, which is wicked. So you can see there, very nice looking sculpt work going on. And then as we just spin our attention here down to the legs, as per tradition with McFarlane Toys figures, of course we do in fact actually see a pre-pose, which I believe is what they started off with when they did originally begin producing figures. So definitely looking really nice. I think the overall pose that they've got the Batman in here looks fantastic. And unlike the standard version, we do in fact actually get a unique base for this version. So we've got an almost gargoyle here at the bottom. You can see they're very nicely sculpted. That there looks wicked. We've got a couple of fluffy hairs from the review station, but that there just looks so nicely done, with more of that red paint that we saw from the Batman itself. And you can see here the base has got these almost cobbles or bricks going on here at the bottom. Now of course you could remove Batman here from the display base, however seeing as he's been pre-posed, he literally won't be able to stand up whatsoever, so I personally wouldn't recommend removing him from the base. whatsoever. But in a nutshell, I believe that just about wraps up this gold label version of Batman. So without further ado, let's move on to the Riddler, and then of course we'll take a look at the more traditional version. Now the Riddler, sadly, I personally don't believe to be as good as the two Batman variants, and if you have to choose, I definitely wouldn't choose picking this guy up. But that's not to say that he is a bad looking figure at all. There are just a few flaws with him that ultimately I think jeopardize the overall enjoyability of actually owning a statue of the Riddler. But you can see as we bring him in here for a closer look, much like the 7-inch version, a fantastic looking head sculpt, and considering it's larger, it does indeed actually allow us to appreciate some of the details of which may have become missed with the smaller version. So you can see that we've got the transparent glasses there looking as ever really cool and creepy. You can even see the painted and sculpted in eyes beneath this, which is excellent. So the glasses are in fact a separate piece. You can see the mouth component, which looks cool with some of the breather holes, and much like the Batman, you can see that we've also got these really nice seam lines going along the side of the mask. And strangely enough, much like the 7-inch release, we do have this really peculiar, almost transparent dome encased over the top of the Riddler's head. So I'm not entirely sure as to how that's going to shape up in the movie, but you can see all of the straps here towards the back, of which actually look incredibly realistic, despite this clearly being plastic. I think the paintwork across the board has turned out really nicely, and you can see a much lighter shade of green used here for the inside of the coat when in comparison to the outside. We've also got some really nice fur paint detailing going on here. You can see the tiny little tassels that would help to tie up the hoodie. And then as we just turn our attention here to the torso, strangely enough, I have these really peculiar white splotches all over the Riddler. I'm not entirely sure whether or not that was intentional or if it is a paint mishap, but that definitely is something to look out for when tracking this figure down. You can see how we've got the question mark or the enigma mark here, slap bang there on the side of the jacket, and much like the 7-inch version, some fantastic creased and wrinkled material effects. Overall, a really nice looking figure. Now, personally, I don't think the jacket looks as good here as the 7-inch version, nor as nicely as it is looking here on the card. There is just something which, at least to me, comes across a little too plasticky. Now, of course, whilst the figure is made out of plastic, I still just think that there's something missing. Maybe it's the fact that it is, for the most part, a solid sculpt. There is just something of which I think is slightly off with the actual coat of paint they've used, but that definitely doesn't detract from the sculpt. You can see really, really nice looking pocket detailing. Much like the 7-inch version, sadly, we merely only have this shovel as an almost accessory. Surprisingly enough, it is indeed a separate accessory. However, personally, I wouldn't recommend using this, but something of which is a slight improvement over the 7-inch release is that at least we actually have the tape here harnessed to what I would imagine would be his belt. Would have been awesome if we could have got that pose from the movie where, of course, Riddler's ripping the tape, but we'll no doubt see that later down the line as we spin our attention here to the back. Once more, incredible crease and wrinkled material effects going on, and even here for the pants or trousers, these two look really nice. I believe these are combat trousers, so you can see there the pockets. Sadly enough for me, the foot broke clean off, and it's because I'm not entirely sure whether or not it's a flaw here on my copy or whether it's designed for this, but I was under the impression that both of the ports on the feet could be fulfilled at both times with the two tabs that we've got going on here for the base. But as you can see, there is just so much space between where this foot tabs in and where the next foot should tab in. And as I was trying to push it, the foot snapped clean off. So I'm definitely not going to try that out on camera. Definitely be cautious when you get this figure in hand. There is no play or flexibility in these legs at all. They are completely rigid. As mentioned with Batman, if you were to drop this, I am in no doubt at all that this would break into so many pieces. So do not try and split the legs. Do not try and force anything. If it's not going to go on easily, then just leave it being pegged into one of the holes. But you can see here for the boots, really, really nice looking sculpt work going on, and the paint suit also looks wicked. And surprisingly, much like Batman, the base also doesn't look too bad at all. So we've got what appear to be here some bricks or some concrete, and of course we've got the wooden floor, which looks as if though it's been charred or burnt at the bottom, and this too has also actually been painted pretty nicely. So overall for Riddler, whilst it's definitely a decent looking statue, I personally just don't think that in regards to quality and the overall texture or colour that they've used here for the jacket, it matches up to the standards set by Batman. And rounding this video off by taking a look at the one and only the Batman himself, this statue is actually really awesome. Much like the red and black version, this looks incredible, and with the more traditional colour scheme, I definitely think it's going to be the more sought after out of all of the other variants that are of course available. I believe there is a golden version, which whilst looks awesome, I personally just don't think it's going to appeal to the vast majority, and that this one is definitely going to be the hot seller out of them all. You can see that in regards to sculpt work, it is in fact very similar to the black and red version. However, I can assure you that there are a few subtle differences, of which I'll go into detail in just a second. So you can see here for the cowl, much like the version that we took a look at earlier, some fantastic seam detailing going on here. I think that looks awesome. You really are able to appreciate some of the sharper details here of the sculpt with this larger format, such as the texture that we've got going on here. I think the skin tone looks awesome. Really strangely, they have decided not to paint the eyes. I'm not too sure whether or not that is a QC thing. Maybe they thought that the eyes would have looked slightly strange on this larger figure, or maybe he's got almost glowing eyes in the movie. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but that definitely was something that caught me off guard when I got this figure first time round. I'll just take him off the base. It's a little easier to in fact actually showcase some of the details, but you can see the bat emblem there looks fantastic. Really nice looking sculpt, and I love this almost glossy paint that it's been coated in just to make it stand out from the rest of the suit. You can see, much like the previous version, all of the fantastic segments going on here for the armor. We've got the tasers on the side, as well as the actual gauntlet sections here, looking really cool. The pose of which the hand has been cast in is slightly different. So instead of the almost grasp that we got with the red and black version, this one here is slightly more relaxed. And unlike the other version, we do in fact actually get a batarang sculpted in this. Now, this is not removable. I did in fact actually bump into this earlier on, and it snapped clean off. So you really be careful when just handling these. These are very fragile pieces. You can see, however, the batarang has actually got surprisingly a pretty nice variety of sculpt work going on. And much like the previous version, you can see we've got some really nice paint as well as sculpt work going on here for the utility belt. Same can also be said here for the actual grapnel gun, and the position of the legs is identical to the red and black version, with the cape as ever looking really awesome. And it has been cast out of a slightly more pliable PVC material, so whilst isn't articulated, definitely will get out of the way if you wish to maybe hook it over something or just try and heat it up to pose it in a slightly different way. Now, articulation wise, much like the red and black version, the arms are very limited. I personally wouldn't recommend moving them at all, and the wrists can, for whatever reason, rotate forwards and backwards. At least this one can. I'm not entirely sure about this one. Yeah, this one can as well, so we can get that rotating left to right. So this one definitely looking really awesome. Very quickly taking a look here at a few comparisons. We've got the gold label version compared next to the regular release, and you can see that in terms of the molding of the main body, they are identical. It merely is just the hands of which differ, and you can also tell that the cape appears, at least here on the regular version, to have been sculpted ever so slightly differently, but honestly it really is just minor. You can see that as far as the bases are concerned, these two are also modified. So for the exclusive version, we do get the gargoyle, whereas here with the regular release, it merely is just a few bricks, or I guess you call them stones. The sculpt and paintwork here for this particular base is just as good as the gold label version, so you can see there incredibly realistic paint as well as sculpt work. Overall, they just look fantastic, and you can see that in terms of a personal preference, I've kind of got to give it here to the gold label version. I really do like how distinctive the red and black color scheme looks, but definitely let me know down in the comment section below on what you guys think out of the two. I just really wish in some ways that they had kind of tried to paint the eyes here on this figure, even if they were just a complete bright white. I think that maybe would have looked slightly better than just a bland black. And rounding off for comparisons, here we've got this 12-inch statue compared next to the regular 7-inch the Batman, and the same comparison set up here with the Riddler. We've got the 12-inch version compared next to the 7-inch release, and considering the statue version of the Riddler is posed upright, it really is here that you can tell the major difference in regards to scale. And just very quickly before I do in fact actually forget, here with the gold label version we get this really nice cardboard cutout, which actually comes with a pair of transparent stands just so that you can prop it up behind the statue. Much like the collector's card, we've got some awesome artwork, really, so that you can create the image that we saw on the card. So that looks awesome. We've got Gotham City there done in the red and black, and as we spin our attention here to the back, we've got the Batman logo there, with of course the actual Batman insignia slap bang in the center. And so, some final thoughts for the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse 12-inch The Batman statues. Honestly, for a collector of which up until this point has never in fact actually desired to purchase a statue himself, I am thoroughly impressed with how these three have turned out. I really think they've turned out a lot better in person than even I was expecting, and my anticipation and expectations already were incredibly high as I've purchased some of the other McFarlane Toys articulated 12-inch figures, and despite these being statues, I knew that I was going to get as good sculpt work and as paint as some of those those previous releases, and they've absolutely delivered. I think in particular, where this red and black version is concerned, it looks awesome, and honestly, if I had to recommend one out of the three, it would definitely be that version. I think it looks so cool, especially when in fact actually accompanied by the included backdrop on a display shelf. It's really going to be a standout piece for any The Batman fan. I think the sculpt work looks awesome. The posing I actually think is pretty nicely done. It's not too extravagant nor too boring, and the actual display bases that both versions of the Batman come with, but more specifically once again that gold label version, look really nicely done. I think the sculpt work to the gargoyle is wicked. I also really like the regular version of the Batman. I like how they've kind of spiced up the molding ever so slightly by giving the regular version the Batarang and a slightly different hand for, of course, his left side. I'm not entirely sure as to why they decided to leave the eyes just a blank black. I think that maybe if they would have even just added some white, I actually think that would have looked slightly better. But at the end of the day, at least to me, it's not a massive deal breaker. The Riddler is by far the weakest out of the set. Now, of course, that I am slightly biased, just as I did unfortunately actually break him due to those feet just not being able whatsoever to in fact actually peg into the two ports on the display base. Now, I'm not entirely sure whether or not that was down to my own personal fault. I'm not sure whether or not it is designed to peg into both of those ports, but considering the Batman does in fact actually peg seamlessly into it, it would stand to reason that the Riddler was also designed that way as well. But as you saw, one of the feet did in fact actually snap clean off, and that is definitely something that I would recommend to watch out for. Do not try and articulate these figures. Do not try and just slightly pry joints apart in order to make them fit on the display base, as they will break. They are incredibly rigid, and just by holding them, and from some experience with previous figures, I do know that if you were to drop them or apply too much force, they would snap clean off. Overall, I don't think the actual texture that we've got going on for the Riddler's jacket looks as good as the 7-inch version. I think that maybe if they would have applied maybe a slimy paint over the top just to make it look a little more reflective, or maybe look as if though rain had in fact actually been dripping on it, I think it would have looked slightly better. But that's not to detract anything from the sculpt work. I think it looks really cool. The pose I personally find to be slightly uninspired. It would have been nice if we could have seen him actually ripping the tape, much like we've seen from all of the various other promotional shots from the movie and of course the actual trailer. But as mentioned previously, there will no doubt in fact actually see a variant of the Riddler in the future. I'd really love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Out of the three, which is your personal favorite statue? Do you guys in fact actually collect statues? And if you don't, will these the Batman statues actually persuade you to do so? I'd really love to hear your thoughts on both the statues and the review down in the comment section below, and be sure to stay tuned to the channel for more the Batman related merchandise. As always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.